Look, China has engaged in unfair trade practices for years and years, and this president has decided to call them out on it and to hold them to account.
And then on another issue, on China, as you saw, the president today signed a presidential memorandum on kickstarting a process that could see up to about $50 or $60 billion in tariffs on Chinese goods. What was the U.S. role in the U.S. State Department's role in this decision? And do you believe that this could, in fact, a lot of people believe that this could begin some kind of trade war? Do you believe that this could in any way affect your relationship with China as you're trying to tackle regional issues?
Well, let me take the last part of your question first. We have a longstanding relationship with China. There's a lot of work that is left to be done with two massive countries. One of the key things that we will be dealing with regard to China is the DPRK. And let me remind you that they voted in support of UN Security Council resolutions on sanctions for North Korea. So we don't believe that has changed, that we asked them to continue to adhere to those resolutions. And so we have a complex relationship, certainly with China, but we have a lot of areas where we have to work together with them, and they recognize that it's not just in the United States' best interest, but it's in China's best interest. And I think the president overall has been very clear from first day on the campaign trail, long-standing concerns that he has and administration-wide people have with China's unfair trade practices. Two large economies, it's natural for us to have to address things that we don't agree on. One of them is certainly trade. The president has fought very hard for advancing opportunities, economic opportunities for American businesses, but also the American people.
Do you believe that the president didn't actually impose those restrictions today, as many had said or reported before? Do you believe that this could be leaving some kind of door open to the Chinese to negotiate some kind of?
I'm not going to speculate on that. The U.S. Trade Representative issued a pretty thorough report about their concerns with China's unfair trade practices. I can give you a copy of that if you like, and so they are handling much of this.
I'm just trying to get to the relationship, which is a foreign policy and a diplomatic relationship, which also affects, those moves also affect this building. So do you see any kind of impact on on the relationship between this department?
Well, as I said, I think China recognizes, and we recognize, that we have to work together on a lot of areas of mutual interest. But the president has made very clear from the beginning. Remember, it was a year ago, I think it was a year ago this time, that he sat down with President Xi at Mar-a-Lago. And one of the issues that was brought up, that the president brought up with President Xi, was China's unfair trade practices. We had our 4 strategic dialogues last year, all of them completed. One of them specifically was on China's unfair trade practices. So this announcement would come as no surprise to the Chinese. The president is looking out for the best interests of the American public and American companies, and this is one step that the administration has decided to make. Hi, Lisa. Sure.
Thank you. He also has been saying all along that he was holding off on holding off on such measures because he was seeking Chinese cooperation on the North Korea issue. And then you just, kind of noted that China has signed on to several resolutions, working with the United States on these type of sanctions. So isn't that a little bit of an inconsistent message? He got the cooperation and then imposed the tariffs anyway?
No, look, China has engaged in unfair trade practices for years and years. And this president has decided to call them out on it and to hold them to account.
That's a fair point. But at the same time, do you think it was wise to kind of tie the imposition of these type of tariffs to Chinese cooperation on other national security issues, which you are getting?
Look, China has been cooperating with us for the most part. We always say that they can do more on the issue of North Korea and denuclearization. This is not just something that the United States is asking for, cooperation on denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Many countries are, including China. So it's not just in our interest to get Kim Jong-un to give up his weapons programs. It is in the interest of China as well, and we think that China recognizes that.
I totally see your point, but now that the president has been making Chinese cooperation on North Korea such a big issue, and he's imposed the tariffs anyway, aren't you concerned that perhaps that cooperation will wane?
No, look, China recognizes that it is also in their best interest to push for denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula. And I don't think that they're going to back away from that because we impose tariffs, rightfully so, to benefit and to help out American workers and American companies. This is no surprise. We should not act as though this is any surprise.
Today?
Not to my awareness.
U.S. and South Korea, North Korea, a trilateral party talks. Will the U.S. accept this trilateral talks?
You know, I can tell you, and you've probably seen this reported in the news by now, that South Korea and North Korea are planning to have a meeting ahead of our summit, which we have not announced any dates yet at this point. They're planning to have a meeting. We are in close coordination with the South Koreans and the Japanese, for that matter, about all of these meetings and all of these talks. So we have no comment or plans on a possible three-way summit, but we're still going under the operating premise that we will be meeting with North Korea.
Yeah, only bilateral talks with the North and
Yes.
the United States.
Yes.
Do we have anything here from North Korea recently?
Not at this point. Not at this point. I don't have anything new for you on that. I'll let you know. Yeah, sure.
So you don't have anything from North Korea. Are you just basically kind of making plans going ahead on what the North Koreans are telling you? I mean, wouldn't you like to hear from the North Koreans that they're...
Well, that's why I go back to our close relationship with South Korea. I mean, South Korea has been perhaps our best interlocutor in dealing with this issue. As neighbors, as two countries that had preliminary meetings already, they worked out some of this framework at the Olympics, and so we trust our allies and partners, and so we trust South Korea. So certainly.
But don't you feel a little bit uncomfortable about going ahead and making preparations for a meeting with another country that you haven't even had a official confirmation directly
You know,
from?
this is just complicated diplomacy, Elisa. I think that's just the way it works. We are looking forward to having these meetings and conversations, and we trust our South Korean allies, and we trust the Japanese, and this is an U.S. government-wide program,
I
which we're
understand,
standing
but
by.
don't you need at some point some kind of official confirmation?
I'm not going to get ahead of
from
that.
North Korea?
I'm not going to get ahead of that. I'm not going to speculate. I think where we are right now, we're doing just fine.
Can you
Yeah.
just explain what he's doing until the 31st, since he still has the title of Secretary of State?
My understanding is that he's headed back home, and beyond that, I'm unaware. But he, when he met with Director Pompeo the other day, he offered to stay in touch and provide assistance if Director Pompeo should need any assistance.
But if there's no sort of formal duty, why is he
Mm-hmm.
retaining that title? For
My understanding is that because his commission is up on March the 31st.
Okay, and then just to follow up on the redesign, what is the status now of the redesign now that he's left the building? Is that being frozen? Or?
It's called the Impact Initiative now. The status of it is that it goes forward. We will largely maintain sort of an even course, a steady course between now and the time that if Director Pompeo, if the Secretary Designate does become the next Secretary of State, we want to keep things calm for him, ensure an orderly transition, hand things over to the Secretary Designate if he becomes the Secretary of State. Hopefully the Senate will confirm him. We would certainly like a speedy confirmation if they agree that he is the best person for that. And then we'll hand over all the information to Director Pompeo, and he can make a decision about what he would choose to do with the redesign. We talked about this the other day. Some things are sort of no-brainers, like getting us in the cloud, getting us up to speed with our IT, other things he may want to do away with, but that would be his choice.
The groups that have been meeting between USAID and state and the money that was spent on outside consultants and things like that, is that going to continue to be spent? Will those groups continue to meet?
I would imagine that any contracts that we have in place would continue to go forward until those contracts, I mean, this is just a guess, that contracts would stay in place until those contracts expire. But if there's anything more for you to have on that, I'll let you know.
When you say the Deputy Secretary is doing all the day-to-day duties, that means that he's handling anything that would be at the Secretary's level involving interagency or foreign governments.
That's
the
correct.
Secretary, although he retains the title does not speak on behalf of this administration to foreign leaders anymore.
That is
That is
correct. That
correct.
is my understanding.
So-
I mean, he may get a phone call from somebody congratulating him on his future,
On being
but
fired? I'm just curious because, I mean, he's going to keep security as long as even though he's not doing anything that is related to the nation's business, he's still going to have diplomatic security agents. He'll still presumably have access to classified information.
my
and
understanding
a
is that
SCIF
my
in his
understanding is
house.
that he was processed out today.
Oh, okay, so all of that is gone, and he does not have security provided by the State Department
I don't
anymore?
know about security. That's a very good question. I will look into that. I'll ask our DS and get back with you
Okay,
on
so
that.
literally the only thing he still has is the title.
That is
Gotcha.
my understanding,
Thank
yes.
you.
And the deputy secretary is handling all the meetings, all the bilateral meetings, all the big decisions that are now being made at the State Department. It's all on his plate, so he's doing two jobs.